pioneers, it's my people. This is where I feel it's the birthplace. It really is a joining of the midwives, the ideas, the ingenuity, the creativity, the sparks of inspiration. Pioneers brings all of these visions and all of this action together.
There's nothing that's off the table here. It's all possible and it's all connected and it's so liberating.
How do you heal generational trauma, especially when you are from a culture where trauma is not only silently accepted, sometimes it is a matter of survival? Joining me is Jerry Teo. He is the founder of the National Compadres Network, and it addresses issues of racial healing and violence prevention. Thank you so much for joining me here on Free Speech TV.
Thank you. Thank you.
I absolutely loved your talk on pioneers, and I loved your story about your grandmother. And if you could just tell us a little bit about, first of all, why do you feel that trauma is generational? If we could start there.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here.
It's our honor.
Life is generational. And so when we look at life, there's always a duality. You can't have night without day. You can't have, there's a duality that's present. So within all of us, there's that duality. There's the things the teachings that come to us in life through light, through happiness, through joy, through blessings. And then there's the teachings that come to us through struggle and come to us sometimes with pain, sometimes with sadness. And so all of us carry that. It's not one population that carries it or another population. The difficulty in managing, if you will, hurt and pain and trauma and suffering is when people don't acknowledge it, right? When people minimize your struggle, when people justify your pain, when people impose that and say that's what you deserve or that's who you are, and then that gets manifested generationally, and you're acting out on your wounds, and people says, "Oh, that's who you are," and they blame you for who you are, right? So it's not about that trauma in itself is reflected in one culture or another. We all carry it from every population, but it's about first of all acknowledging the duality within us. Within this society, even now people are talking about trauma and people want to be trauma informed. The problem with that, when you live in a society that's still very patriarchal and still dominant by certain populations, then they can use that against you, and they can justify pathologizing you or medicating kids.
It's happening as we speak at our borders, as we speak, every moment. And it's a certain amount of helplessness that these children and families feel, that they're helpless to that patriarchal nature. How do you disrupt that? Do you have any advice?
Well, this morning, I talked about living in Compton, which, if you look at the data, look at the research, look at everything that's been said about Compton, is a very violent, hostile, if you will, dysfunctional. All these words are used about Compton. But what I say is, in Compton, there's sacredness. Yeah. And those grandmas, there's sacredness. And even in the wounded men and the wounded women, there is sacredness within them, right? But if you continue to have to live where you're always having to protect yourself and always having to shield yourself, then a certain part of you really gets watered more than the other part, right? I remember as a young kid, I always had to be on. I always had to be watching. I always had to be afraid of, even those that I thought were supposed to protect me, police, teachers. I was always on. So what that does is that affects you physiologically. That affects your sleep. It affects your being able to enjoy life. It affects everything. Yeah. So when we come back, and that's why I come back to the simplicity of my grandmother, and the simplicity of those teachings, that regardless of where she was, she lived a certain way. She honored life. She honored, life. She honored her God, her creator. She did that every morning, regardless of what was going on. Regardless of what happened the night before, she's knelt down and prayed and called to those ancestors, called to those spirits. She used her traditions, and then she passed them on. She blessed us up that way, So I think, the initial teaching is acknowledging and accepting your sacredness, right?
Yes.
If you only live with the reflection that you're negative, that you're a problem, that you're not supposed to be here, that you're undocumented, that you're illegal, that you're
All those words, all those terms, all
criminal,
those
all those
labels.
things,
Mhm.
then what begins to happen is it's like sticky notes all over you. You don't see yourself anymore, right?
You
And
become the
then
label.
and then people that want to justify, their agenda can then use those things to then manipulate and retain the status quo, retain that hierarchical where you value certain people more than other people, where you judge certain people more than other people, where you criminalize certain people more than other people. And so it begins with the lesson that I gave today, recognizing that we all are sacred, and that, for myself, that's a daily ritual. That's a daily
Yes.
tradition.
You had your grandmother, and she sounded amazing, and she blessed on you every minute that she could. How do we find our inner grandmother if we don't have that type of mentor in
She's
our lives?
there. I mean, my grandmother's with me right now. She's with me all the time.
But those that weren't raised with that type of mentor.
Yeah, but I think that again, when you think about it in the Western way, it's almost like I have to have a lineage grandmother to be there. In that community where I grew up, okay? And I talked about my friend Tyrone would come over and my grandma would bless him up. We'd go to his house and his grandma would bless me up too. It was very different. Miss Mosley wasn't a little lady, she was a big lady. She didn't call me, she called me baby. Come here, baby, right? And she said, bless you, child, bless you, baby. So there are grandmothers that exist in the community, right? What I say, you want to make a school campus better. You want to help heal kids. Put some grandmas on the campus.
Yes.
Put some grandmas roaming around the campus. All they got to do is bless kids up. That's all they just bless them up, right? I mean, so it's not that the grandmothers don't exist, but when you're in the frame of mind that it has to be your blood-related grandma, has to come from your
Right.
all these Western ways that begin to inhibit our ability to heal, right?
I agree with you, but Jerry, we're putting those grandmothers in senior living, then we're not seeing them anymore, and we're casting them into. Can you?
Well, again, it's a value system that is based on, economy and on productivity, and that's way back, and that's been indoctrinated, and it's today being indoctrinated in these kids. Go to school so you can get your degree, get your diploma. Why? So you can make money. So you have, and nobody's talking to them about values, about giving back, about sharing, about traditions, about all those other things that are really what's going to keep you balanced and make you happy. So when we talk about trauma and healing, first of all, it has to come to you have to feel worthwhile enough to be healed. You have to know that healing is possible, right? And so we have to hearken back to that interconnected sense, extended family, right?
Yeah.
To the intergenerational family. So people call me grandpa. I mean, they call me tata, and a lot of people call me uncle, and I am their uncle. I am their grandfather.
Yes.
I am their tata, and even if it's not somebody from my culture, if an African American young man says, can I call you grandfather? Call me grandpa. Call me baba. What part of my role is to see what was it his grandfather teach him, right? It's not just my teachings. It's let me connect you with some other people that are from your lineage that can give you that grandfather teaching, give you that, right? So I may not be the one doing the teaching. I may be one connecting the teachers, right? And when we take collective responsibility for that, it becomes significant. There's an elder that shared this experience with me that he went to Africa, and he went to Africa and I was looking at the community, and he saw this young boy, and he was talking to this young boy, and he says, well, where's your father? And he says, see that man over there, that's my father. And he says, but I saw you talking to this other man over there. Who's that? He says, that's my father. He says, but wait a minute, this other guy was over here. Who's that? He says, that's my father.
Yes.
He named 5 different people that were his father. He says, so I asked the guide, he says, I don't understand. Why does he call them all his father? They're all his father. He says, you see that disheveled man over there? He was in war. He got wounded. That's his biological father, right? And this boy pays honor to all of them. See, so when you have that mentality that there are many people that can guide you and take care of you, and as when you grow up, that's your responsibility. It's not just a choice. It's something I need to do, right? I had a little boy that had lost his dad and was grieving, and he's grieving, so he's acting out, he's bullying, he's fighting, and so they sent him in to see me, and I began to talk to him, and I said, son, I really feel bad that your dad is not here with you. I can't replace him, but I'll be your uncle. And he says, you're not my uncle. I said, but I can be your uncle. You can call me. You're not really my uncle. I said, well, just call me uncle. But you're not, okay, if you want to be my uncle, then on Tuesday night I have a play at school that I'm doing. You got to come and see my play. And I'm saying, dude, I want to watch the Laker game, But I said, okay, I put it out
Right.
there. And he so
Be there
I had
for
to show
me.
up. So I showed up, and he was doing this little mushroom thing on stage, and
He did.
and he saw me, and
Yeah.
he started doing it bigger, right? Started doing it bigger.
Yeah.
And then when he finished, I went up to him to congratulate him and acknowledge him. And his other little boyfriends were there, and I said, "Because a good job, you did a good job." And then friend said, "Who's that?" He says, "That's that's my uncle." Right? And right there,
Oh,
we did some healing.
yes.
Right
that
there.
began.
See, sometimes we think we're healing that little boy. He was healing me too, right? He was healing me too.
Yes.
And so when we understand it's more of a circle, now obviously there's some generational wounds
Yes.
that exist in this society, and one that I mentioned this morning, and one that actually a lot of our work at the National Compadres is built about, is related to the wounds that men carry, that then therefore inflict on other people, especially on women.
Women, yes.
And domestic
Yes.
violence and sexual assault and
Yes.
and all of and misogyny, all of those
How do
things.
we change that?
Well, again, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but one of the things we need to recognize is that there's a sacredness within our manhood. There's a sacredness within however you identify based on your gender, but there's a sacredness there. And in my traditional way, that sacredness of manhood includes 4 directions. Right? It includes that, yes, I have the masculine part of me,
Yes.
but I also have the feminine part of me. And then the third direction is I need to have that child part of me too. I need to be able to play and to laugh and to be innocent sometimes, but I also have the wisdom of elders. And so in the essence of who I am, I need to have the flexibility of moving, of when to be strong and sometimes, be directive, but when to put that shield down and be able to be strong, but also be able to feel and be compassionate, and be strong, but be able to play strong and play happy, but also
Yes.
be strong in my wisdom, right? And the strength is not a brutal strength, it's a gentle strength, it's a compassionate strength. And so when you talk about sacred manhood, we need to recognize that all those things are part of who we are. Now, what happens when you're wounded is you get stuck in one place.
Right.
And many of the men get stuck in a false sense of who they think they are, especially if you've seen men act like that and be like that.
Right,
and be
your whole
violent
life.
And be
And every man.
authoritarian and
Yes.
and the society that promotes patriarchy. When you see
Mhm.
that and you
Mhm.
think that is what manhood is about, then you begin living based on a wounded sense of who you are. So part of the work we do is to recover the sacredness of who we are in all of our relationships. And the first lesson of sacred manhood is honoring women. Honoring women. If we don't honor women, if we don't honor the feminine, if we don't honor the earth, if we don't honor the feminine within us,
Yes.
we don't honor all of that, because if we don't do that, we can't heal.
No matter
Healing-
what we've seen,
No.
when you speak to a group of youth
Yeah.
and you say that to them, do you get pushback in the beginning?
When I speak to youth, the first thing I do is apologize.
Apologize for what?
I tell them I'm sorry. That what we've shown them has not been the proper example. The examples that they've seen has not been based on our sacredness, it's been on our woundedness. But because of our pride and because of our own woundedness, sometimes we didn't have the courage to say that. Because we were so busy just trying to survive.
Yes,
sometimes,
yes,
right?
yes.
And so
it
I
was
apologize to
mistaken.
them. And I say, I'm sorry.
Goes a long
that
way.
we have not been that example. We have not been those teachers and we've given you the false teachings. But now we invite you to come heal with us, to come learn with us, to come recover, to come discover, to come uncover the sacredness of who you can be.
That probably breaks down a lot of barriers right there.
Well, it does, but healing is a journey.
It's a long way. It's a long road.
It's a
Yes.
lifelong journey, and
You've got to start somewhere.
right, and that's the beginning.
And so finding that sacred inside, reconnecting to that, forgiving yourself and the entire culture and generation for what may have happened, and start over
And
every day.
Well, and I think the other part is responsibility and accountability. We call it palabra, giving your word. What do you commit to?
What is that?
And
Yes.
what do you commit to? And you have to commit to that sacredness of respect, dignity, love, and trust. Those values become essential in everything you do, right? And so it's not just about, okay, acknowledge this, I'm sorry for this, but now how are you going to be? How are you going to be moving
When no
forward?
one's looking.
When no one's looking, or when someone's looking. And you have to do things when no one's looking, but you also have to be the example for those coming after you. And when you see other people, especially other men or other boys, acting in an irresponsible way, one is that is not connected to sacredness, then it's your responsibility sometimes to speak up, to stand up, to embrace, to stop, to rebalance those things, right? And when more of us begin to collectively do that, then we get closer to that sacredness. The National Compadres Network.
I was going to ask, how can people get involved?
Well, 31 years ago, a number of us that were working in the areas of domestic violence and sexual assault and all that, and as men, we were very distressed because, first of all, there weren't any programs for us. We were all perpetrators and we were all negative. So that didn't give us an avenue to heal. But at the same time, we were very ashamed because we were causing the harm. So a number of us chose to gather, invite some men to come and be part of a movement. And 19 men showed up. And we were talking about we want to do something for the community and programming and help, develop.
Make a real difference.
Yeah, make a difference. But we first had to start by, we didn't know each other. Some of us didn't know. So who are you? What's your intention here? The third brother in began to share, I'm down for doing all of this. But my problem is I'm wounded. I was abused as a kid. I don't know how to love my wife. I don't know how to love my kids. I don't know how to deal with this anger. And he began to cry. And when he cried, it just opened us all up. The ancestors came in, opened us all up, and then everybody else opened their hearts. By the time we got around that circle, we were all the therapists, the movers, the shakers. We realized we were all jacked up, right?
Yes.
So we realized the most revolutionary thing we could do is to heal ourselves.
Start there.
That's the first thing. You have to heal yourself.
That's
And
a perfect message.
And then from there, then you have to relearn your teachings. You have to embrace the sacredness of your teachings. And finally, you need to pass those on to that next generation.
And maybe some of the teachings that you were teaching weren't working
Yeah,
when you really
sure.
measure it up
Oh, yeah.
against
Oh, yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
So you can start anywhere, and people can find the
National
network
Compadres
anywhere.
Network is website. Look at their website, National Compadres Network. You can look at my website, jerryteo.com. There's a link to National Compadres. And there's teachings. We have curriculum that we do all across the country. We do a lot of training. We do rites of passage training with young men, fatherhood, teen fatherhood. We do a lot of healing work, circle keeping healing work.
And this offers an opportunity for kids that might be in that system, in that cultural system, to get out.
To get out, to get involved. But I really want to challenge the system. The systems are the ones that are really are hurting our kids.
Can we talk about that for just 2 minutes?
Well,
Yes.
our school system indoctrinates kids, and especially,
Yes.
kids of color, black and brown boys, they expel and suspend them at a higher rate. They look at them in when they're acting out as that's negative. That's a sign that something's not right with them, right? And so the systems, the health systems, the mental health system overdiagnose, over-medicate. But we have all these systems that are really not about healing people of color, right? They just want to try and fix them and get them out the way. And then for some of my people, they deport them, move them back or incarcerate them.
Right.
So we really have to challenge the systems. If you truly want to heal, if you truly acknowledge and really want these young people and their families to do better, then you have to heal your systems, right? Because right now we have wounded systems. And by the way, I don't care if you grow up and become successful and be a politician. There's a lot of wounded politicians out there, right? That are creating wounded policies and all of those things, and that's
It hasn't been addressed.
Right.
And the systems that are in place are just repeating the same
That's right.
cycle. They're
That's
putting
right.
Band-Aids on
Right.
it. And it's so when you are a youth and you see that sideways look, how do you go inside and find that inner grandmother? How do you do that when you see that?
Yeah.
system doing you wrong.
Well, that's why you need family,
Yeah.
and that's why you need
A chosen
grandpas
family.
and you need grandmas and you know, and those adopted uncles and aunts
Yes.
and I think communities are building those extended family and that kinship network. You know,
Yes.
and we across cultures are doing that. We're very strongly involved in Oakland with the Brotherhood of Elders and with Native groups and with API group. I mean, we're coming together as people.
Yeah.
And because we're all interconnected that way, and we must
are.
heal together.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
spending
you.
time with me. And thank you so much for being here and for your wisdom and for your work in the world. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.